Shiviti Adonai Linegidit Amid Kimimini Balemont Lechen Samach Libi Vayager Kivodi Af Bisari Ishkan Lavatach Kilot Azov Nafshi Lishol Lotitein Chasidcha Lirot Shachat Todieni Arachayim Sovasimachot Et Panecha Ni'imot Biminacha Netzach.
Words of Psalm 16, Psalms written by David to express closeness to God in moments of joy and moments of difficulty as well. And in the 16th Psalm, we read a michtam of David, "Protect me, O God, for I seek refuge in you. I say to the Lord, you are my Lord, my benefactor. There is none above you. As to the holy and mighty ones that are in the land, my whole desire concerning them is that those who espouse another God may have many sorrows. I will have no part of their bloody libations. Their names will not pass my lips. Lord is my allotted share and portion. You control my fate. Delightful country has fallen to my lot. Lovely indeed is my estate. I bless the Lord who has guided me. My conscience admonishes me at night. I am ever mindful of the Lord's presence. He is at my right hand. I shall never be shaken. So my heart rejoices. My whole being exults. And my body rests secure. For you will not abandon me to Sheol, or let your faithful one see the pit. You will teach me the path of life. In your presence is perfect joy. Delights are ever in your right hand." We're here today to remember Nomi Loeb and join our hearts together to give comfort and strength to her family. Mourning is the price that we pay for having the courage to love others. For even in grief, we know that the wonder of human life is too magnificent and too complex to be memorialized in endless pain. The gifts of spirit our loved ones gave us cannot be measured or weighed, nor can they be lost or even tarnished by time. For even in our darkest hours, we know that some of their light and their warmth will always be with us, bringing comfort and courage, and in the fullness of time, healing and peace. In a poem I'll read, And the child asked, "Tell me of life." And the sage answered, "Life, my child, is a mystery. We do not ask to be born, nor do we even understand the meaning of birth, of creation. We grow and we experience life's pleasures and pains. We love, and slowly, oh so slowly, we come to realize that we are, that we have become. And at that moment, we humble ourselves before the mystery of life and quietly say, though I knew not, I have been granted the most precious gift of all, the gift of life." And the child asked, "But tell me of death." And the sage answered, "Death, my child, is also a mystery. It is the inevitable return of the gift of life, the gift which came free to us. We live as the trustee of that mysterious being, of that unexplainable becoming. Yes, you and I are the trustees of life. We nurture it, we delight in it, we give of it to others. And at the appointed time, we sadly, yet with pride, return it from whence it came. The beauty, my child, is that what we are and what we have become remains long after the gift has been returned. It remains as a precious keepsake with our loved ones who lived on." And I know that we have so many loved ones here. Being in Utah and the Jewish community really does become your family. But we also have folks who are intimately connected to Nomi as family. And of course we have her husband, her children, her grandchildren here who've come from all over the world to be here. And they're going to at this time share some of those precious keepsakes and holy memories that they will take with them. I'd love to invite Roni, Nomi's daughter, to come and share some memories that she has of her mother.
Mama? Little me is remembering soft warmth and ole ole and flowers, and how you rub my back, and you sing Nomi Nomi. And I feel safe to begin emerging into seeing and hearing and knowing. I'm watching you. You're smiling that twinkly smile, the one that says to people, you're special. I see your beauties. I care about you. They know you like them. I see them through your eyes. I see their specialness. You help me fall in love with the world. I'm watching you. You have your deep listening face on. You're imbibing someone's story, making it part of you, allowing yourself to be changed by it, showing them that you hear, that you understand, that you are awed by them, by the story of their life, that it has meaning, that it is unique, that it is universal, that they are not alone. You help me fall in love with story, with the essence of people, and life through telling and listening. I'm listening to you. You're on the phone. The long, curly cord is stretched to the counter in our orangey red flowered kitchen. You are chopping something, and the receiver is held in the space between your ear and your shoulder. A person is crying through the phone on your shoulder, and you are chopping something and telling them that it'll be okay. And I believe you, and they do too. And you talk to me about how people feel, and sometimes if we listen the right way, we feel what they feel. And I know it's true because I can feel you feeling them. And I'm awed, fascinated, scared, enthralled by the power of emotion. I'm growing, and I'm not sure anybody knows it because I'm still in my tiny little girl body. I feel like it's some secret I can't tell. I don't know why. I don't know if you can see me. I'm scared to tell you that I'm 10 years old and I used my canteen money at camp to buy a bottle of roll-on deodorant. And I'm hiding it under my mattress because I don't know if it's okay to grow up. And I'm crying, that uncontrollable crying, and I can't breathe enough to say the words, and all I really want to do is tell you that I need you to see me growing. That I want a training bra. The kids in school are teasing me. That I need you to close and also to treat me like I'm big. And then you put my cries and hiccups and snippets of words together, and you envelop me in your tiny arms that still feel big. And you speak softly into my ear, and you stroke my hair, and tell me, of course you're growing up, Bubale, and I'm so happy for you. I'm so proud of you for telling me, and I think, you understand everything. You're my best friend forever. I'm watching you. Our table grows and grows. The people there are everyone and no one. They're scholars and students and new to the community and transient and wealthy and cultured and people of no means at all. They're our school friends and their friends. They're Jewish, they're not Jewish. You give them love. You honor them with your eyes, with your listening face, with your wisdom and kindness and understanding, with your self-deprecating humor, with your irreverent eye roll. You're in the kitchen, and they're washing lettuce. You're cooking, and they're chopping. They're setting the table, and you're speaking loudly over the partition. They're happy. I see it. You've given them life in this moment. You've given them a place. They belong. They belong to you, to us, by extension. You help me fall in love with what I receive in my heart by giving. It doesn't feel like an effort. It feels like water, warm. I'm watching you. I learn about how perfect and imperfect love can be. I see you softening Abba's words for others to hear. I see you translating him to yourself, to us. I see your eyes looking at him with love, with admonishment, with mischief, with admiration, with annoyance. You're cleaning up his messes. How did you ever get matched up with such a slob? You're sitting on his lap on a Friday night and we're singing and he's telling some joke for the 100th time and you giggle that cute courtesy giggle that sweeps everyone into that somewhat unfunny moment with love and joy. And you help me fall in love with a lifelong love affair. Everything but love notwithstanding. I'm 15 and I'm watching and listening and I'm thinking, you are so embarrassing, you understand nothing. I'm pushing you away and needing you close, and we're both confused, and I'm in my big girl body, and you're tiny. I wish you weren't so important and the biggest tiny person alive. I wish people didn't know you and love you and need you and think you're the best thing. I wish people weren't looking at me and thinking I should be something special because you are something so special. I can't measure up, and I'll never be enough, and I hate you for being you, and I love you. And you say, Ronile, who you are is wonderful. And I don't know why you're saying that, because I'm terrible. I'm not nice to you, I'm pushing you away, and you say I'm wonderful? I make you angry, I hurt you, I stay out late and rebel, and you say, there's this thing called unconditional love. You make me angry, but I love you no matter what. And I hate your wisdom. I am not wise enough to hold that complexity yet. I have words, but what holds me now are the oil of Olay and flower hugs, and your hand on my cheek and on my hair. I go far away, and you let me. Even though I know it kills you to do so, I'm sporadic and intense, distant times, needy times. You are there. You try to understand me. You are concerned. You are proud. I'm growing, and you let me. You help me fall in love with space and adventure and exploration and with falling in love and with finally coming home. I'm watching you. You are opening your heart in a new way. I'm understanding that the family you choose, ours, is huge. And the tiny inner family, ours is tiny, are not the same for you. I'm shocked and fascinated by the process you go through in order to fall in love with my love. You could have kept him in the space of all the other beloved adopteds, but you didn't. You don't. but you don't know how to do it. You're awkward, and we all are. You insist on figuring it out. It takes time. You fall in love with my love. And he with you. He becomes yours forever. And you help me fall in love with an open heart and with authentic struggle for closeness again and again. I'm watching and listening and feeling you. You are holding my child in your arms. And I know that she is yours. She's emerged from my body. But I see that you've melted into each other. It doesn't get any better than this, you say. And I know you're right. And you help me fall in love with generations, with the love of love all over again, with a heart that grows and grows, with the newness of everything, with wonder and delight, and with the uncanny wisdom of children. Mama, as the light of your intellect dims, I'm lost. I'm trying to make you cling to what was, what could yet be, to hope, to effort, to strength, to something that looks like mighty, efficient. If I don't do it, it doesn't get done, you. I've never seen this before up close, Mama. I don't know what it is, and your wisdom isn't helping. I don't know what to do, how to be who I am now. Mama, I'm watching you. I see that you're teaching me. I'm feeling you feel. You forget everything, almost. You remember love. You never forget that. You ask me, who's your mama? And I say, you are. And you say, I am? Yay! With so much delight in the discovery. How do you do that? I see your listening face. It's still there. Even though you don't remember what's been told, you're imbibing people's stories but leaving it to them to hold the memory. You're holding them in your tiny body. You're caressing their cheeks, speaking German or Hebrew. They understand, and so do I. You're right here, right now, and the next now, and the next. You're not the shell that people describe others becoming in this terrible disease. You're sitting on the chair with your feet swinging or in Abba's lap as he sings to you and gives you chocolate or chalva. You're dancing with me and singing old childhood songs. I put your hands on my head and you give me the bracha you always give me to protect me, to seal me into this life. I have to remind you of the words, but I feel the blessing of them in my body. I leave again, I come back again. Mama, I'm watching you. You can't see me, but you open your eyes. You aren't moving except your hand searching for my hand and holding so tight. You're a couple of hours before leaving the world, and your soul insists on making your body cling to the love. I want to hurry back to you, to light tea-light candles for you, for your last Shabbat on earth, but you don't want that. I'm feeling you. My eyes are drawn to your wedding candlesticks on the mantel next to your wedding photo. Below Gabi's magical wolf drawing with the golden eyes, the glowing eyes. And I know we need to light these candlesticks here, now, and you're with us. And as we allow the candles to create the separation between Kodesh and Chol, you release your soul and rain your love down on us. The phone rings the next moment and they tell us you are gone. And you help me fall in love with the kind of love that never ends. And about how you protect the ones you love forever. And about how I can begin, as big, little big me, to hold your hand on my cheek, on my own. Mama.
That's hard to follow. Okay. Hi. For those of you who I do not know, I'm Gabi. I'm Nomi's middle child. her favorite son, her tallest son, and her only son. Like many of you, like all of you, I'm standing here today devastated at the loss of this beautiful person and proud to be able to celebrate her life. I've had a long time to contemplate what I would say in this moment, years. But of course, most of my best ideas came when I was half asleep in the shower or otherwise somewhere where my brilliance was fleeting and definitely not written down. So a few thoughts about my mama, Nomi Loeb. There's no one in the world who loved being a tiny little person more than Nomi Loeb. She capped out at a Jewish 4'11", which is probably really 4'8". For her, being the smallest one in the room was actually a source of strength, and she really did love the attention. Everyone who knows her knows that she played it up, shopping for shoes in the children's section, asking anyone and everyone to get things for her off of high shelves, whether she needed them or not. At home, at work, and in the community, she was self-deprecating and adorable, but also usually the smartest and most articulate one in the room. She was charming and disarming and always thoughtful and sensitive. She was really funny, sometimes on purpose with a well-timed joke or comment, but often in everyday life with her idiosyncrasies, often still related to her height, of course. She almost always wore heels, for obvious reasons, unless she was wearing slippers. She's the only person I know who has taken long walks, has run, and maybe even hiked in both heels and slippers. She used to use a pillow in the car so she could see over the wheel and reach the pedals. And in restaurants, she would ask to sit on a telephone book, and when they stopped making those, a pillow. On road trips, which we took often when we were younger, she had a funny and sometimes annoying habit of deciding every once in a while to start reading signs out loud. Not some of the signs, all of the signs. Street signs, store signs, restaurant signs, mile marker signs. She always wanted to play perquacky. I don't know if we ever played perquacky. But anytime we had free time, especially on road trips, always perquacky. It's a word game, I think. Later boggle. She loved word games. She was also fiery. She was Israeli, after all. She certainly had a temper, and I may or may not have been on the receiving end of it at times. And some may have felt it if they ever cut her off driving, and she may have requested that she hoped they would run into a tree. We heard that one a few times, and sometimes when she said it, her Israeli accent would come out. But those moments definitely fade with time. I want to talk about her talents, her gifts. She actually, not surprisingly, had many. She was a brilliant student, an intuitive teacher and leader, a talented writer, although if you ever asked her to read and give you suggestions on an essay, for example, you better expect a complete rewrite. She picked up languages easily: Hebrew, English, Farsi, French, Spanish. She had a beautiful singing voice. She was a graceful dancer. She played a tiny bit of piano, had artistic talent, and was a scratch home cook who, kind of in this day and age, I would have loved to have seen on one of those cooking shows. But of all of them, her defining gift was her limitless capacity to love. And you'll notice a theme here, I think. I'm sure that all of those in this room who knew my mom could tell stories that when you spent time with her, she made you feel like you were the most important and special person in the world. And here's the thing, she truly believed it. Even the more so, the next person that would come into her world would feel the exact same way. I think about it a little bit like parents with a child who are about to have another one and wonder how they could possibly love someone like they do their first. Well, the truth is, of course you love them as much, you just love them differently. There's plenty of room in your heart. Well, my mom's heart had limitless room, even in that tiny little package, to give love and receive it, whether to her family, her friends, her students, her colleagues, her patients, her doctors, her nurses, her fellow residents. You get the idea. To know my mom was to love her, and she loved you back. And while she never talked about it explicitly, it was clear that she believed that if you send love into the world, it will come back to you. I want to talk about my Abba for a moment, too. They were a team after all. More than 56 years of love and partnership. They each made the other strong. They loved each other deeply. They taught Roni, Adina, and I not only to love and appreciate each other, but they were a model for how to create and nurture family. When my mom could no longer be the social one in the family, which she was, he took it on surprisingly seamlessly, continuing to open his home and his heart to so many and taking on so much of her sweetness. He was so patient and loving with her and showed up. He showed up every day, even on the most difficult days. I love you, Abba, especially for making her years what they were, creating a wonderfully close, intimate, immediate, and extended family, and helping give her the life with so much love and meaning. The last decade or so has been really hard. Hard for her, hard for my Abba, hard for the three of us, hard for her grandchildren, some of whom didn't really get to know her the way she once was. Those of you that knew Nomi Loeb for a long time remember what a powerhouse she was, how she lit up the world with energy and love, and could somehow make everyone feel better about themselves and the world for being in her presence. And while Alzheimer's stripped away so much of who she was, those of you who also knew her later in life know that what was left in her, her essence, was sweetness, kindness, a little bit of mischief, and she could still light up the world. While she's gone now, I do see a world that remains brighter because of the light she shared with it. I'm very proud to be your son, Mama. I love you and I miss you.
I'm a little more Nomi says, so I'm going to see if that helps a little. And I just want to make it clear that it was never hard to be the third in this family, ever. There was definitely no reputation of great students or brilliant anythings or great dancers or anything like that, ever. Mama, when I try to find a way to say goodbye to you, my thoughts flit around, dancing from one memory to the next. That movement in my mind reminds me of watching you enter this sanctuary on Shabbat morning, greeting people around the room, moving from one person to another, giving kisses or hugs, trying to talk quietly to not disturb anyone, little caress on the cheek, maybe on both cheeks, a smile on your face. You were in constant motion, a doer, volunteering on committees, going to meetings, welcoming anyone new to our community or just passing through, and immediately inviting them over to our house for a meal. Finding out that someone in town was going through a difficult time and needed extra support. The number of people that came through our home is simply staggering to contemplate. Many of those guests became like family over the years. You touched so many people, Mama, and you didn't stop. At all of those meals, you hardly sat, ever. You prepped and served and cleared and cleaned up along the way. Throughout the week, one would find you in the kitchen, the absolute center of all things in our home, cooking and baking and cooking and baking and baking. Did I mention cooking and baking? You were intuitive in the kitchen, adding a little bit of this and a little bit of that until the food tasted just right. That kitchen was where we gathered to be with you, a place of warmth, conversations, both sweet and savory. You were a person of action. Your hands were always busy, doing, chopping vegetables with a paring knife, stirring, holding a phone on your shoulder while chopping and stirring. You see a theme here too. Washing dishes, never with dish gloves, of course. Hands, those hands that drew pictures of clowns on command, basted the hems of my pants that were too long, you knew about that. Picked raspberries and blackberries and every stone fruit imaginable. Hands that hugged and held and made nice to my cheek and dried my back after the bath by rubbing circles over the towel. Hands that carefully combed my wet hair, neatly parting it on the side until I messed it up because it seemed sort of too not me. I can feel your hands gently resting on my head when you gave me my bracha on Shabbat, not to muss the hair, mind you. I loved your hands, tracing your veins with my fingers, your rings, looking at your perfectly rounded nails. Your hands were small but strong, like you in so many ways. Gentle, capable, nurturing, loving, reaching out, pulling people close. For all the ways you were in motion and busy, you could also be a person of stillness and focus, and dare I say, patience. You were an excellent listener, kind and wise. You made me feel like whatever I said was incredibly important. I remember often sitting on the edge of your bed, talking with you, calling you after I left home and letting everything on my mind tumble out to you until I started to feel better. The listening and focus became more and more difficult for you in recent years. I've missed that. I've missed so much for who you were. Your busy hands lost much of their capability. What remained in you to the end was your single, inextinguishable trait, your deep and wide capacity for love. In his poem, Testament, Hayden Carruth describes how we become more loving as we age. I'm going to read from it. So often it has been displayed to us, the hourglass, with its grains of sand drifting down, not as an object of our world, but as a sign, a symbol, our lives drifting down grain by grain, sifting away. I'm sure everyone must see this emblem somewhere in the mind. Yet not only our lives drift down, the stuff of ego with which we began, the mass in the upper chamber, filters away as love accumulates below. Now I am almost entirely love. Mama, these words resonate for me because they capture the person that you were, especially in the end. Almost entirely love. The person we said goodbye to on Friday was but a sliver of the vivacious woman who raised us. And yet, you managed to spread your love up until the final moments of your life. To your family, to the caregivers at the Ridge, some of whom are with us here today, who treated you with such incredible kindness. To the many members of your extended family by choice who came to visit you over the past 2 years. In the end, you were present, unencumbered by worry or judgment, no longer busy. You could just be your most essential self. You were love, almost entirely love. When Roni, Gabi, and I walked into your room on Thursday, your closed eyes fluttered in response. You reached for our hands, holding on with a surprising strength for a woman whose vitality was slipping away. When any of us let go during those final hours, you held out those beautiful hands of yours, trying to take hold again, holding tight to each of us, a final embrace that you gave to us and enabled us to give to you. Thank you for all of that love, Mama. Thank you for holding on to us for so long. It is so hard to let go.
Thank you. Roni, Gavi, Adina, I'd like to invite Svi to Nomi's son-in-law to share some words as well.
Speaking as a son-in-law and also as a father-in-law, I realize that our parents, our own parents, raise us to a certain point, and then our in-laws take over. And for some of us, our spouses take over. And their job is to get us from a certain place to really become a mensch, to become a human being and the kind of people we want to be. You heard Nomi's children talk about what it is to be part of the intimate family and to be the family that Nomi has chosen. And that's what it was really like. I felt that from Mama and from Abba. I learned to grow up and become a human being. And for that, I will always be tremendously, tremendously grateful. There are a few things I learned growing up as I did in the Loeb home. I learned that family is everything, and again, this is a theme that you've heard many, many times. It didn't matter if one of the Loeb children or the adopted Loeb children, those of us who entered into the family late, were wrong about something. It just mattered that we were family, and that was everything, because there's nothing more important than family and in supporting the family. I remember how, Mama, you were always on the side of your children through all the great times, through the challenging times. You were always there, and you were always there to support, to encourage, to love. When someone, for you, Mama, if someone was 25 years old, that person wasn't 25 years old. He was 2 years younger than Gabi, a year older than Adina. Everything revolved around that family orbit. Your commitment, Tachnasat Orchim, to welcoming people in the family was something that wasn't only known to those of us who loved you from close. This was what you were famous for. I think our kids can finish the sentence when I say, anyone who would meet Mama for the first time, or for the second time, third, or fourth, she would always say, and next time you're in Salt Lake City, you'll have to come and be with us. And people did. Hundreds, maybe thousands of people came here and ate at Mama and Abba's table and experienced their hospitality, experienced their love, the welcoming spirit that they felt. Another thing I learned from you, Mama, is that I came to your family as someone who held his Judaism very much within. And sitting at the Shabbat table with all of the guests, with all of the larger Loeb family, I learned to share more. I learned that Judaism and love for Judaism is something that is really supposed to be with the community, with as many people as you can share. I learned a lot about active parenting, and I learned about active grandparenting. Mama, I have so many beautiful memories of you sitting on the floor with your grandchildren, playing, taking just sheer delight in being with your children, being with your grandchildren, playing what they were interested in. It didn't matter how boring it was. It didn't matter how boring it might have been that you had played with the same doll and the same game and built the same structure so many times before. The sheer delight you would take in sitting with your grandchildren and just delighting in them. And more than that, singing to them, because singing was such a part of your language. You would sing to them in Hebrew, in German, in Yiddish, and your grandchildren remember those songs. Most of the time when I think about you and I think about the memories, really a smile comes to my face. And the sadness is something that we're experiencing now. But the sadness for me really comes to my mind when I think about your fabulous great-grandson, who you never got to meet. You would have had such delight in him. His smiles, his laughs, the music, you would have sung those same songs to him. You can't now, but you should know that your granddaughter and your daughter sit with him on the floor, and they sing those very same songs that you used to sing to your grandchildren and to your children. And he will, for the rest of his life, hear those delightful stories of the Safta Rabbah that he never had the chance to meet.
Thank you, Svi. I see a number of Nomi's grandchildren here. I'd love to invite all of them up onto the bima this time. I know a few of them have some words to share.
We would like to speak today in honor of also Adiel, Ari, and Avivi, who couldn't be here today with us, and on behalf of grandchildren, we love you very much. We're gathering to celebrate the extraordinary life of someone who is not just a grandmother to us, but a guiding star and a beacon of love, our beloved Safta. As we stand here, memories come flooding back, painting a vivid picture of a woman who left an incredible mark on all of us. Her legacy is not in the stories we tell, but in the very essence of who she was and the impact she had on all of us. Safta, you were the heart and soul of our family. Your radiant presence filled every room you entered, and your ability to connect with each person in the most genuine way was a gift beyond measure. We can still see you gracefully working the room, stopping to talk to everyone, stroking their cheeks with a tenderness that made us all feel truly seen and valued with your loving words. Your social grace was matched by your ability to make even the smallest interactions feel like cherished moments. You were more than a grandmother to us, you were a grandmother to our friends as well. You had an uncanny ability to make friends in the most unexpected places. Even the supermarket was a place of connection and laughter. Safta, you had a unique way of making every moment memorable. From the little things to the grand gestures, you filled our lives with joy and warmth. We can still hear your sweet laughter echoing in our hearts the way you would laugh at Saba's jokes, even the ones that were far from funny.
And who could forget the sound of your tiny black slippers slipping around across the floor? It was a sound that brought comfort, a reminder that you were never far away. You held Saba's hand as you walked together, your steps four to his one, practically running because life was too short to dwell. You were always watching out for everyone, especially making sure Saba ate his greens and didn't trip on branches. You were a woman of action, always following Saba around with a rag to clean up after him, a small act that spoke volumes on your commitment and devotion in those early morning stretches that were a testament to her vitality and a reminder that it's never too late to embrace a healthy routine. Life took you through many chapters, from your days as a hospital social worker to your unwavering role as a grandmother. will forever remember how you used to introduce yourself to patients with a smile saying, "Hi, my name is Nomi. Now you know me." Your wit and your kindness endeared you to everyone you met, and your compassion left an imprint on countless lives. You would sit on a pillow to reach the driver's seat. Safta, your spirit was boundless, and your energy seemed endless. You're always in motion, never content to sit still. We can still see your tiny feet, those shoes that you'd find in the kids section because your feet were too small. Those shoes carried you through a lifetime adventure, and heels, of course. A reminder that even the smallest steps can lead to the grandest journeys. In the realm of everything, you're a master of the sweetest indulgences. You knew where the chocolate was hidden, and your penchant for evening out the brownies in order to have just a bit more was endearing and delightful. In those magic bars, cream cheese brownies and Rice Krispie treats, they weren't just treats. They were a taste of your love, carefully baked into every bite.
We remember how you always wanted us to sit in the middle seat of the car. It was so that you and Saba could watch over us and hold our hands, a symbolic gesture of your desire to always keep us close and watch over us. Your iconic black robe adorned with flip-flop designs each morning. You'd emerge in that robe ready to face the day with a smile and a heart full of love. Oh, how we remember those early mornings when we burst into yours and Saba's room ready to play patty cake at the stroke of 7. Your enthusiasm was infectious, and those moments became the foundation of treasured moments that we hold dear. One of the most beautiful treasures you left behind was that storybook, a collection of memories, funny stories, and lines we would say, both significant and simple. Each moment counted. The fact that you meticulously recorded our stories makes us feel incredibly lucky to have had someone who was so present in our lives and who constantly made it her business to document our lives. Safta, you were more than a grandmother. You were a role model, an endless wellspring of unconditional love. Your laughter was a melody that filled our hearts, the sparkle in your young eyes, a constant reminder of your inner child. Ever since we can remember, you would slide down slides with us, sit on the floor and play games, and curiously ask us about our lives and what we were interested in. Alzheimer's may have dimmed your memory in the latter years, but the irony was not lost on any of us. You, who had the sharpest memory and remembered every detail about each of us, were faced with a challenge that couldn't erase the love you had for us. Even as your memory deteriorated, you held on to that essence that made you so uniquely you. You never lost your ability to make us feel special, loved, and seen. Rest in peace, dear Safta. Your love will forever be a guiding light in our lives.
Thank you. I'll have you all actually stay up here for a moment. Were you going to say something? Yeah. Go ahead, bud.
Safta, you were an amazing grandmother, and one of the things I remember most about you was your love for music. Whenever you and Saba used to visit me and my family, you always wanted to hear the newest thing I was learning to play on piano. And whenever I finished, you would always come to the piano yourself and play me the same song every time. And, well, I think that might have been because it was one of the only songs that you did still remember how to play. You really loved it. I also remember from when I was much younger that you would always sing these cute little Hebrew songs to me and my sisters. I know Tzvi talked about that before. And they were such a big part of you that in one of my family's more recent visits, when we came to see you at the Ridge. When we decided to sit down in a circle with you and try and sing them, you remembered them almost perfectly. It was probably the most energetic, the most alive I'd seen you in years. And even though you're not with us anymore, your music still is. And I'm going to pass down your songs, the Dor Vador, to my children and grandchildren, like you did to me.
Was there anybody else who's Thank you. I'd love to ask you all to stay up here actually for a moment. In our tradition, the most wonderful thing that a Jewish woman can be, most wonderful tribute to a Jewish woman, is being named a woman of valor. And sadly, not every single person lives up to that woman of valor, because this woman is supposed to be so wonderful, so unique, just so amazing and virtuous. But I think all of us would agree, even though us Jews don't agree on too much, I think something we all would agree is that Nomi Loeb absolutely exemplified what it was to be an Eshet Chayil. And so I'd love to invite all of Nomi's family to come up here onto our bima and to lead us in Proverbs 31, the woman of valor.
אשת חיל מי ימצא ורחוק ממך בתקה לבעלה ושלה לא יצא כמה רצת טוב ולא רע כל ימי חייך דשת צמח ופשתים ותעש בחפץ כפיך הייתה כעוני עוד שוחה ממך תביא רחמה ואתה כמון לילה ותתפק לכך נדותיך זממת חדשכם מפרי כפיך נתקם ובעוז מותניך בטמא צבאותיך תאמר כי טוב שכר לא יכפה בלילה נרה ידיה שלחו בקישו וכפיה תמכופה כפך עשה לעני וידיה שלך לאביון לא תירא לבית המשפט ככל בית הלבוש שנים מים לא תעלה שש רגמן מבושה נודע בשערים בעלה ושבתו עם סכיני הארץ סלדין עשתו בת למכור בחגו נתנני עוז והדר לבושה ותצחק ליום האחרון פיך פותחו בחכמה בתורת חסד על שונה צופיח הליכות בעוד איתו ולחם עצלות לא תאכל כמה בניה וישרו הבעלה ויהללה רבות בנות עשו חיל ואת תליתה כולנה שקר בהמה וליופי שייך פרנאית ותלה תנו לה מפרי ידיה ולו השרי בעשה.
Thank you. Thank you, family. You may return to your seats. Yeah, I would like to invite our cantor, Lori Loeb, Cantor Emeritus Lori Loeb, to share reflections on his wonderful wife.
Most of you don't know me, who know me, know that I'm very, how should I say it, not particularly emotional. Or at least I don't seem to be. I'm not going to speak to you, Nomi Loeb. I'm going to speak about you, because it's too painful to try and speak to you now. First, our family owes overwhelming gratitude to the leadership and staff of the Ridge Foothill Memory Unit for engaging and lovingly caring for our Nomi. They took over when my efforts at home were insufficient and made her decline over the past 2 years almost bearable. Likewise, the medical staff at Canyon Home Care and Hospice was admirable in the attention and skill in attending to her many needs. And in the final days, the hospice team was cathected to both of us as they eased us to this inevitable moment. The many friends, congregants, and others who visited with her, the Chever Kadisha, which she headed once for over 20 years, and those who gave themselves as guardians for these last several days prior to the commemoration of this life so well lived. Thank you from all of us. My Nomi Loeb. How can I even attempt to capture you in words in these few moments? It was the summer of 1973, 60 years ago. Down from the staff bus came this cutie in yellow t-shirt and short shorts. I just knew this was going to be a great summer for the two of us in Camp Ramah, Nyack, New York. 8 weeks later, it might have been great for the cutie who linked up with the guy with the motorcycle. I was the dork with the long shorts and the 2 tablets filled with those weird medieval signs of scriptural cantillation. Nope. Love did not burst out for the two of us until 3 years later, despite a Deseret News article in 1995 which claimed it began as a great summer romance. And even then, after capturing her desire for adventure to join me in exploring Jewish life in Iran, she nevertheless stalled responding to my proposal of marriage for more than a month. Nomi Loeb was a Sabra. She was really a Palestinian. She was born before the state of Israel was created. I used to tease her about that because back then, of course, the only Palestinians were the Jewish ones. Her first language was German, which she spoke with her mother, who had difficulty speaking anything else. And Hebrew she spoke with her father. And afterwards, as it was mentioned, she learned English. When we went to Iran, she mastered Persian, and picked up a bit of French and Spanish. And when the Russian immigrants came here in the late 1970s, surprise, she picked up Yiddish too. But at her core, she was Israeli. And she reminded me of this every time she got angry with me, because all of a sudden her accent switched over to Israeli Hebrew accent, and I knew that I was really in trouble. She was 14 when she arrived in this country, and her father, worried about her identity as a Jewish person here in this unholy land, decided to put her in Flatbush Yeshiva in Brooklyn. But she came from a secular home. And within a couple of years, this was not working so well. So she ended up going to Midwood High School in Brooklyn. She wanted to be an American. And that led to some classic mistakes. She used to tell me this, one of the stories which I love so much. She was walking home from high school with one of her friends, and they passed by a Catholic church and saw a big statue of Jesus in front of the church, and she noticed everybody who seemed to go by there used to genuflect. So she came by and she genuflected, and her Jewish friend who was walking with her says, "What's going on? What are you doing this?" "Well, they're all doing this. Isn't this the American thing to do?" Well, she learned over time, of course. I bet you didn't know that her father Aryeh was a Belzer Chassid. They lived in the Carpathians, in a little town in the Carpathians, for him it didn't go so well either. He rebelled early, but interestingly, when Nomi Loeb came down with polio in 1947, who did he go to but the Belzer Chassid, the Rebbe, and asked him to pray for her. So even though he neither practiced very much nor seemed to be particularly connected anymore, when push came to shove, there he was. Her Ima was the sweetest woman imaginable. Now, I had Nomi, and so I can tell you, Nomi was incredibly sweet. She got it from her mother. Her mother was just so kind and so warm and so innocent. Nomi used to tease her. I used to tease her, she tried to speak German with me, and I had taken 6 years of high school and college German, and my parents had always spoken German behind my back, so I wouldn't understand. And so I would start talking to her in a kind of made-up German-like German, and she laughed. She thought it was the funniest thing in the world. It was pathetic. So she came from this, and her mother was raised in a secular home in Germany, this was a complication for Nomi, because as she gradually embraced a very powerful connection to the Almighty and needed a way to express it. The yeshiva in the United States didn't do it for her. Her father decided, okay, you want to go secular, we'll send you to the Jewish Theological Seminary. It's a little less, maybe that was helpful. But as she gradually got closer and closer to that, and Camp Ramah and so on, she was no longer a worry to her father in terms of losing her Jewishness, because unfortunately I came along. And as you know, Nomi was tiny but mighty. She had a strong God-centered identity, she compromised her initial secular orientation to be much more religiously observant, learning, integrating, sharing with others, and teaching. It didn't come naturally. She had to do this. She had to practice this and learn it. Not surprisingly, during our marriage, we had to figure out some accommodation. I was obviously much more observant than she was. We found a way of making it work. Nomi was a fabulous anthropologist. I should know. I was a teacher. We went into the field shortly after our wedding. That was, I think, the big attraction. I mean, certainly it couldn't have been me. But to go into the field, to have an adventure for a year and a half, that was a big attraction. And she was an incredible researcher. Not only among the Iranian Jews we studied, but the Yemenite Jews we studied, the Moroccan Jews we briefly visited. She even enthusiastically grasped and embraced formal study of anthropology. When we got back from Iran, she actually went and did a year of graduate work in anthropology, and I suspect that if her mentor hadn't come on to her, she might have actually continued. That helped her too, because her life's focus was understanding and helping others. And so it's not surprising that social work was where she ended up What better than that? Her graduate social work placement honed her incredible insight into what was the heart of clients' troubles. Her intake skills, even as a student, were so incredible that the clinic she worked in as a student and then afterwards had her being the head of intake to evaluate potential patients as they came in and to be able to assign them to the best possible therapist in respect to her particular, the patient's particular needs. We all know, of course, that Nomi's greatest joy were children and young people. She rejoiced in each of her pregnancies. She barely went with Roni, reached 100 pounds, and they had a big celebration in the obstetrician's office when she reached that. She didn't look pregnant until way, way along. But the experience of pregnancy she loved, and of course the reward was incredible offspring. But she was also filled with love for others right up until the end of her life. Nevertheless, her children and grandchildren, as you heard, were the chief beneficiaries of this affection. She loved to schmooze with her many granddaughters, as you heard. She quelled at their achievements and marveled at her only grandson's skills. She taught them to love each other and bond tightly. And that, in some ways, was probably the most important achievement that Nomi and I think, managed. Of course, you all here, most of you knew her very well and knew that this ability to reach out and love and pull in people, which extended outwards to many of you and many others. She was your teacher, your moral role model. She directed Kolomi Religious School for 15 years. And those mischievous guys who loved to cut up in class were thrilled to be expelled from class so they could joyously be disciplined by the tough-minded Nomi Loeb. At the end of 1995, Nomi found another anchor of affection. At the beginning of her career, she did adoption placement for an agency in New York City. Many of the mothers were young singles, and in 1995, Nomi moved back to social work at the university's hospital's obstetrics unit. This was not a long-term therapy option, but a quick assessment kind of program, such as she had done earlier in her career, helping new mothers to decide how to cope with baby, how to cope with ethnicity, religion, economic circumstances, emotional states, and relationships to which situations. She was brought back full circle to where she started. And she loved it. She loved her, and the staff loved her, I should say, and former patients would sometimes bump into her in the supermarket and thank her profusely for her efforts. Of course, some of them returned more than once to the unit with multiple complications, but she resolutely tried again. Our children already pointed out that some of her greatest achievements had little to do with her professional skills. We laughingly referred to as the Adon Olam kid, because she was always coming to synagogue late on Shabbat mornings, seemingly just in time for the final hymn. No, not fair, not really. She often came in earlier, but she was hard to spot, as was pointed out, because she was like a butterfly, moving around the synagogue too quickly for even me up here to be able to spot where she was. She was the consummate extrovert, the great greeter of people in the synagogue. As you heard the number of out-of-town visitors, she took to heart, "You shall love the stranger, for you are strangers in Egypt," and Salt Lake regulars who graced our tables on Sabbaths and festivals was unreal. And they all wanted to come back often, as you heard, because her cooking was even better than her schmooze. For many here in Salt Lake, She was the community Rebbitzin, filling a role that no one else seemed to be able to fill successfully. She headed Jewish women's organizations, including Sisterhood, with leadership roles in the early years, a group called Shalom, which greeted newcomers into the community, Hadassah, Ort, etc. She was a resource, often called upon to lead tours of the synagogue, visit schools, speak about Hanukkah, the Holocaust. She incidentally lost half of her grandparents and other kin in the Holocaust. And Judaism, of course. Nomi didn't wait to be asked. She was always giving of herself. Nomi, in so many ways, was my ezik kenegdo, a helpmate, but my opposite. She was so outgoing, me not so much. When I chaired the university's anthropology department, she was the one who insisted on departmental parties in the house that she catered. She loved Cantor's conventions, Jewish studies conventions, anthropological conventions, and her friends that she made there always asked for her if she couldn't attend. Our many travels were a great source of pleasure, but visiting children and grandchildren were the tops. Finally, our love was such that I integrated some of her into me. My former students tell me I've mellowed. Darn it. I thought I was pretty successful being tough, and now they tell me I'm getting soft. Nomi lives on, as you heard, in my children, and my grandchildren, and in me. All those she touched and affected share some of this. This, after all, is true immortality, whatever comes after all of this. The sage is asked, who is honored? One who honors, loves, and cares for other human beings. One of our great scholars of the 20th century, Abraham Joshua Heschel, said, the deepest wisdom a person can attain is to know one's destiny is to aid, to serve. This was Nomi. Of Nomila, my life's greatest love, it can surely be said, Rabot banot al suchayil, va'atalita kulana. Many women have done valiantly, and you have surpassed them all.
Alianu Adonai tzilch al yad yeminecha Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka v'yareach balayla Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra yishmor et nafshecha Adonai yishmor et tzitcha uvavecha me'ata me'ata
Paying tribute to Nomi's Hasidic roots. Think of the Hasidic master, Rabbi Nachman of Roslov, who, in his epic book, The Seven Beggars, told the story of the little that holds much. In it, he recalls different people and objects that claim to be the little that holds much. He describes a hill that was used as a landfill for a nearby town. And this hill brags, "Look at how I carry everybody's stuff. Clearly, I am the little that holds much." Well, and then there's an elderly man who's blind, but he has the most incredible memory and remembers everything that's ever happened. And he said, "I carry so much." No, it's I. I am the little who holds much. But then there's this boy who guides him around town since he can't see. And he says, "Nuh-uh, I am tasked with taking this man everywhere. Clearly I'm the little who holds much." And eventually we come to the conclusion that the people of Israel, who are small in numbers, but have so much history and have contributed so much to the world, are indeed the little who holds much. Recently, we had our 50th anniversary at Congregation Kolami and reflected some on the history of our organization here and community. And I think we would all agree, in reflecting on this history, that there was no one smaller yet grander in our synagogue than Nomi Loeb. She truly was our little who held much. When Jill and I first came to Congregation Kolami, one of the first people to greet us was one of the tiniest women that we had ever met, who had the confidence and the forwardness of a lion. And that, of course, was Nomi. She excitedly invited us over for our first high holidays for dinner and enthusiastically welcomed Jill into the exclusive club that she and Rochelle Wenger had of Kolami clergy spouses. The Nomi that we experienced in that moment was one that so many others before us had encountered as well. Notably, Nomi had taken us on a 6-month stint as interim religious school director until we could find a replacement. By the time her 6-month stint ended 15 years later, our school had grown to 220 students. But more importantly than any numbers was the impact that she had on each student. One troublemaker elementary school student recalled how he got sent to the principal's office for misbehaving, and he was terrified, expecting to find an intimidating, mean person who was going to yell at him, and instead found himself eye to eye with a person his size who couldn't have been nicer. Another student recalled how she treated each student as an individual, not a group. She recalled, and another recalled how Nomi was the first person ever who made him feel proud to be Jewish. And Nomi herself remembered that she loved her students because she got to become a part of their Jewish life stories, and with many, eventually play a role one day in their weddings. Nomi's personality truly was one of a kind. Shortly after Jill and I arrived at Kolami, we hosted a 20s and 30s event at our house. We had a solid 30 people in that age demographic in our backyard, and everybody was enjoying themselves when we heard a knock at the door. We opened it up and discovered Lori and Nomi Loeb standing there. And Nomi asked, "What type of event is this?" Well, apologetically, I looked at her and said, "Well, Nomi, it's a young professionals 20s and 30s event." Nomi went, "Oh, well, that sounds like fun," and handed me a jar of homemade jam and walked into my house. As she made her way to the backyard, I thought to myself, how was I going to handle this situation delicately? Well, I need to kick these grandparents out of my house. But the situation resolved itself when Nomi and Lori walked into the backyard and I heard this cheer erupt. People started coming up to me and saying, "You invited Nomi and Lori? That was genius! That is so awesome that they're here." Well, after the COVID outbreak and the lack of regular socialization, Nomi's Alzheimer's sadly advanced, and she eventually moved into the Ridge, where I would visit her periodically. And though her memory faded, her wit, pride in being Jewish, and love for her family never dimmed. This was evident as the whole staff there adored her. And when I would visit Nomi, she no longer remembered who I was, but would proudly show me the pictures of her family and identify happily Laurie, Adina, Roni, Gabi, and tell me all about her grandchildren. And once when we were together, Laurie was in the room. And Nomi got a little confused, and she pointed at him and whispered to me, "Who is that man over there?" I told her, "Well, that's Laurie." And she looked at me with that bewildered look that she could sometimes give people and said, "That's not Laurie. Laurie is young and has dark hair. He's very handsome." And likewise at the Ridge, another resident once when I was visiting Nomi turned to Nomi and pointed at me and said, "Is that your husband?" And Nomi immediately shot back, No, not him. I have a great husband. His name is Laurie." She then admonished the resident and said, "Do not say those types of things. Laurie gets very jealous." But she turned to me and grabbed my hand after having just rejected me and said, "Don't worry, we can still be friends, though." Well, we read in the Torah that the years, perhaps the most romantic words in the Torah, that when Jacob was waiting to marry Rachel, and he had to wait year after year after year, those years felt like a matter of days to him because of his love for her. And towards the end of her life, it was clear that the decades that had passed in the nearly 60 years since Nomi and Lori had first met felt like a matter of days for her as well. The final story that I will share was on one of my visits to the Ridge. Nomi was under the impression I was a college student, which I took as a compliment. And so she asked me, "What are you studying?" I said to her, "I'm studying Torah." She said, "That's great. Where do you study?" So I told her, Well, I study at the Hebrew Union College, which is the primary seminary of the Reform movement and where I went to rabbinical school. A staunch conservative Jew and a Jewish theological seminary graduate, this answer did not impress Nomi. She gave me her eye roll and she went, "Oh," and then made a face and changed the subject. About a minute later, she asked me again, "What are you studying?" And again, I answered the same way, and again, I got, "Oh," and the same response. Well, this happened 2 more times. And on the 5th time that Nomi asked me this question on my visit, I decided, tired of watching my alma mater get bashed over and over again, to mix up my answer. She asked me, "What are you studying?" I answered, "Torah." And she said, "That's great. Where do you study?" And I told her, "I'm studying as a student under Cantor Nomi Loeb." Her face lit up, and she exclaimed, "Really? Wow, you must be very smart and impressive for Laurie to take you as a student." She then asked me, "What do you want to do with your studies?" And I told her, "I want to be the rabbi at Congregation Kolami." The excitement and pride that she had felt a moment ago quickly changed to bewilderment, and she responded, "Really? Why would you want to do that?" She shortly thereafter told me that she would love to keep visiting, but that she really needed to prepare for Shabbat this evening and all the people that she anticipated coming over. Now, Nomi died right before Shabbat, literally right before Shabbat. And in doing so, she died between the Shabbat of Parshat Va'et Nachan and that of Parshat Ekev. And these 2 parshot are so appropriate for bookending Nomi's life. In Va'et Hanan, we read the words of the Ve'ahavta about how we should love God and how it is our duty to teach mitzvot to our children. And there's perhaps no person in our community who did so more and with greater joy than Nomi. And Parshat Ekev talks about the 7 indigenous species of the land of Israel. A proud Sabra, Nomi might have been that 8th unique indigenous species of the land. There was none other like her anywhere else in the world, for she was more than any other person in our community, our little who held much. Zichrona Livracha, may her memory be for a blessing. I referenced the Psalms a bit earlier, and there is a psalm that is familiar to many of us, Psalm 23, in which we talk about the valley of the shadow of death. And many of us interpret that as being a psalm for the dead, but is actually for those of us who are still here, asking God to give us comfort as we experience death, to help strengthen us as we go forward without this person next to us. I'd love to invite Dina and Roni and the grandchildren come up, and any other family members to come on up who wish to do so, to sing Psalm 23. as Nomi transitions from this world of problems, of health decline, Alzheimer's, and memory loss, to a world that does not have the problems of this world, a world where she can be at peace. We ask God with compassion and mercy to be able to escort her from this world to that one with the prayer El Malei Rachamim. I'd like to invite you, if you're able to do so, to please rise in body or spirit.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Babromim, Hamtzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanvei Hashchina, B'malot Kedoshim Utorim, Kzoar Akiya Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Nomi bat Aryeh v'Rivka Shalcha Lo'olama B'Gan Eden Tehei Menuchata Bal harachamim Hastireha B'seita knafecha lo'olamim Utzra b'tzra hachayim Et nishmata Adonai Hu nachalata V'tanuach B'shalom al mishkava V'nomar Amen.
May be seated. As our service concludes here in the sanctuary, in a little bit, we will be proceeding to our cars, and you're invited to join for the burial at the Montefiore Cemetery. I ask that you do not greet the family at this time, but allow them to be able to go to their cars to follow the hearse. Upon arriving at the cemetery, in accordance with Jewish tradition, we will follow the family and the casket to the burial place. This evening will mark the beginning of Shiva for the family. While Shiva will start the minyan will start at 7:30, they ask that you please do not arrive before 7 p.m., but you're welcome after 7 p.m. And there is a schedule on the back of these papers that were distributed with the Shiva schedule. As a reminder, Shiva lasts for 7 days. I know there will be many people at the home this evening, and so you're asked to of course, you're welcome tonight, but also to come not just tonight, but really we will need people throughout the week in order to help the family make minyan. On behalf of the family, thank you. With that said, I would like to at this time call up pallbearers. The family would like to invite Josh Goldberg, Jeff Ernst, Svi Richter, Alex Wheeler, Gabi Loeb, and Hadar Ernst as pallbearers. Pallbearers, if you could please come forward. Cantor Loeb, if you would like to lead us, Mentat Lodavid. I invite you to please rise, and as the casket leaves the sanctuary and the family, you're invited to make your way to your vehicles. Thank you for coming.